Go ahead and switch if you haven't switched. 2 more minutes, please switch. Start to wrap it up. 15 more seconds. Go ahead and start to wrap it up. And acknowledge your partner. Okay, who wants to read the distinctions, or excuse me, the intentions tonight? If somebody who hasn't raised their hand. Raise your hand. You haven't? Almost? Okay, great. Come on up. No. I thought that you raised your hand. Really great memory I have. Yeah. Like she's sitting over there lying, right?
Okay. Did you say intention of the series?
Yes, and the session.
All right. Intention of the series, to leave you able to deal powerfully with each and every aspect of your life. Intentions of tonight's session, to lead, number 1, to leave you living life as a matter of choice. Number 2, to cause a breakthrough in enrollment.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yes. So tonight we're going to get into the distinction choice. We've got several distinctions. We've got enrollment and also declaration. So by the end of tonight, you're going to cause a breakthrough in enrollment. We're going to do an exercise where you get to buddy up with your partner and practice enrollment conversations. Excellent training. Okay. All right. So next, we're going to complete from our last session. So some of you had guests at our last session. Some of you didn't. Some of you may have guessed and they did register. They didn't register. Some of you may have invited people. They didn't come. You know, wherever you are about last session, I'm inviting you to complete that. So is there anything you'd like to share to be complete from last session? You know, you can share what you accomplished. You can share the breakdowns that you had. You can share whatever ground that you take in being someone who makes a difference. I'd like to hear from a couple of you. Who'd like to come up and share? John? Yep. Who else? So Gwen, is there anything you'd like to share to be complete? You can share what you've accomplished, whatever breakdowns you had, or whatever difference that you made.
Many of you already know, probably most all of you know what I've really gotten out of the forum, and in terms of my marriage and what I discovered about myself, and how the problems with alcohol are now in the rearview mirror for my family. And so every single time, pretty much, and I always fly with somebody different. Not every time, but quite often I'll fly with somebody different, and I'll have a long night's flight, and an opportunity to sit there for 4 or 5 or 6 hours with a different person and tell them about my experience, and I feel like I've left an impression on most everybody that I've sat and talked to about the forum and what you can get out of the forum, and I haven't quite managed to get anybody in here yet, but they know
what
about
did
it.
you
People.
share?
I'll, for the first hour, what usually happens is I'll sit there and talk without stopping for the first hour.
On an airplane?
And they're just like so surprised. Yeah, because I mean you're just sitting there and all you're doing is just sitting there with your autopilot on a cruise, right? So ATC checks, you check in with ATC, and every 20 minutes or so you go to a new controller, and that's it. I mean you're for several hours just flying somewhere. And so I tell them the whole story, and a lot of them already knew about what I was dealing with in my family with my wife, and just a lot of those people I'll fly with again, and I'll say, hey, did I tell you about the forum? I told you about what's going on with my wife, right? And they'll say, yeah. And I'll say, well, this is what happened. And they're really surprised, that it's possible, something like that is possible.
What was possible?
So maybe I haven't spoken to you about it.
You have. Do they know?
I think so. I mean, a lot of people know, but
I don't know.
so my wife.
Who doesn't know?
All right, so I haven't spoken lately. Anybody who's in the dance course knows, and anybody who's in my forum knows, but I guess there's not a lot of people from my forum. So what I discovered in the forum was really when I broke down my winning formula and the way I was controlling my emotions and the way I wasn't showing emotion based upon the things that happened in my life. I was displaying that to my wife, and so when my wife got cancer, and I was sitting there in front of her doctor and the doctor was tearing up, and the doctor said she had stage 0 cancer, which to me was just like, stage 0. That didn't make any sense to me. But she's crying and the doctor's crying, and I'm sitting there stone-faced, like I don't feel anything. And I'm trying to console my wife as an emotionless person. And I'm asking the doctor, should we get a second opinion? Which to me was logical. I mean, stage 0 cancer, I never heard of such a thing. It ended up being stage 1 once they were able to examine the biopsy or the material once they actually did the operation. But she knew, she felt that. So she felt that I wasn't feeling anything for her in that moment. And really a lot of what she felt over the course of the years was that same person. So in a lot of ways she would find ways to just make me angry just so she could get some form of emotion out of me. And I'm the person that controls my emotion.
You get mad at your partner, just get emotion out of them? I do that.
Mm-hmm. And so, and then the first thing I realized is when we had the homework in the forum, and I wrote a letter to someone I was being inauthentic with. I wrote a letter to my sister, and I showed her the letter, and she actually wants to read it again. I still haven't let her do that. I still have it, But what I realized essentially was that I hadn't seen my father in 30 years, and I didn't really understand why we didn't see him the last time. And my father was a musician. He worked 6 nights a week. And so when my parents got divorced, he was a one-day-a-week father. We could only see him on Sundays. And so he just didn't know how to handle that. And so, we kind of formed a racket about him, and eventually he went on the road to try and make something of himself, and didn't work out so well. And so when we finally got back together and were able to see him again, he hadn't paid child support for many years. And then we saw him briefly, and then I went off to college, and then we were supposed to see him at Christmas time, and then we didn't see him, and I still didn't know why. My sister was always the one that talked to him first. And so 30 years went by. I just said, well, I'm okay with it. I kind of lived my life without my father, my one-day-a-week father, for part of my life. And I didn't even throw a football with him until my parents were divorced. So he could actually throw a football. And, I started thinking, he used to leave comic books on the foot of our bed. And when he would come back after working all night, and he would sleep all day, and then we'd see him briefly for dinner, and then we'd just see him on Sunday. We'd be dragged around the mall, buying stuff or whatever my parents were doing that day. And so I didn't really have like a connection. I never felt like I really had a connection with my father anyway. And so I was able to just kind of go for 30 years, and I found out he was ill through my aunt. And so I found out what hospital he was in, and he had dementia, and I went in there, and I just stood there talking to him, and I just stood there like stone faced, no emotion, didn't feel anything. I showed him a picture of my daughter, and he actually sat up for that, but he had dementia, and it was, he wasn't eating, and so I didn't really fully understand why I was there. And so when I left, I thought, well, maybe I should go back, and he's my father. And I had the social worker call me and say, hey, do you want to make decisions for your dad's health? And I said, well, let me think about it. And then, talked to some friends, ran that racket again, and then I just never went back. And I found out, later, that was 2 years before the forum. I found out later that he had passed away probably 3 or 4 months, 4 or 5 months later. And he had fallen out of bed, and he had an injury, and they went somewhere else to take care of the injury. And so I went through the long list of things that occurred with the social worker, and I still don't know where his ashes are. I haven't been able to locate him. But I realized in that moment that and I read that letter. I stood up there, and I read the letter from my sister, and got very emotional about it when I realized that that our dad wanted to be a dad. He just didn't know how to be a dad, And so that was a very emotional moment for me. And in that time when I was reading that letter, in this entire room, with whatever it was, 180 people, there was no murmuring, there was no sound of anything. You could have heard a pin drop. And
Okay, so
if
John,
I was,
let me stop you for a second. So we're back in the forum that you're sharing from?
yeah,
And the question, I want to bring us to present.
I'm telling you, I could keep talking. Yeah, so anyway, that was the most powerful moment in my life, when I stood up there and I read that letter to my sister. And so that really opened the door for the way I was occurring to my wife at that moment. And then as I put together my winning formula and all that, and then when I did the advanced course in my act, and the way I am, I was making my wife feel stupid all the time. And then the more I made her feel stupid, the more she would drink, and the more she'd be doing stupid things. And so all of that, and acknowledging that to her, is really what turned us around 180 degrees and stopped the drinking. Yeah. So that's what happened. And so when I tell guys at work about that, it's impactful. So last night I was flying with a guy who was telling me about how his wife would buy cases of wine, and he'd sit there every night and drink a bottle of wine, and if he had any of that bottle of wine, she broke open another bottle of wine. And I was like, that sounds kind of familiar. and the resentment and all these things. I said, man, you got to do the forum. You got to do the forum, and I'm going to keep working on it. I said, you do the forum, maybe your wife will do the forum. And he's like, oh, she won't do it, she won't do it, you know. And anyway,
So I get that you're going to stand for him.
I'm going to stand for him, and I'm going to stand for all the people that I really strongly feel need to
Right.
experience it. And I'll stand for anybody that wants to do it, you know. So, anyway, still working on it. Don't have any guests.
Work in progress. Awesome. Thank you, John. So, one of the questions I asked is there anything that you'd like to share to be complete from last session? And so, MJ brought something to my attention, and he'd like to come up and share something very quickly.
Very quickly. Hi, look.
Is it on? It's on.
Look, this is on. Hello?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, look, for me, I have to put closure on Carmen's loss. I just want to speak for 2 seconds because I dressed up in black. I came last week. Last week wasn't appropriate to speak in front of guests. I understand that. So for me, this has been a 2-week stretch of something that I feel will put closure for me, and that would be speaking amongst the people that knew her, because outside of this, I wouldn't have talked to. Just real quick, it's amazing on how you can meet someone in a short amount of time and leave a major life-stone impression. I was supposed to go to Carmen. Can't even talk. You know how you wait to talk and then you talk and then it's all of a sudden, okay. I was supposed to go to lunch with her, and my air conditioning broke. And we rescheduled, and that's no longer going to happen now. I do want to say that Carmen was not only a beautiful woman in the inside, but to me, from the hair, face, and body, she had the whole package. When I first in my forum revealed of me being HIV positive for 25 years, when I went to the restroom, she was the only one that came up to me and actually embraced me for more than 5 minutes in a hug to let me know that it is okay and that there is nothing wrong with me. So I have to just say that I will remember her always, and there was a reason why we crossed paths. Unfortunately, lunch cannot be done, but she will be with me forever in making me a better person for meeting her, without a doubt. So I had to get that. It's closure for me to speak about it. That's how I guess I heal and feel better. What is also amazing is when I was first diagnosed, my family already had the flowers, the color, everything was all picked out for me. And how life goes, I buried my whole entire family, but my mother. And I've been walking around sometimes feeling like I have something inside of me that's going to wake up and kill me one day. And then you meet people that are not HIV positive, that just something happens. So it did something for me because I'm going to appreciate my life so much more instead of waiting to die almost. I know that sounds kind of weird, but when the doctor tells you you're going to die, you believe him. But the gift that I've actually been around this long to have met her and to meet you guys and live long enough to bury my family is quite unexplainable, but just appreciate when you get up and do what you got to do in life. We all have our issues, we all have our problems, but we're human and we should love each other. Life is so short anyway, so it made me a much stronger person, and God rest in heaven, Carmen. Thank you. I feel better.
Great, thank you, MJ. Thank you. All right, so we're going to go to work from the assignment. How many of you did the assignment? I can't see. How many of you did do the assignment? Okay, well, you're honest, all right. How many of you are group leader and you didn't do the assignment? Oh my God, I'm making you guys wrong right now. All right, so can we take on this week that we're gonna, well, the next 2 weeks actually, our next session's 2 weeks. So can we take this on before we can start? That we're gonna do the assignments for over the next 2 weeks? Okay, all right, great. So our last session, we created 4 pillars. that are the foundation on which for you to be effective in all areas of your life. And the first one was integrity. What was the second one? What were the others? Yeah, relationships, existence, and enrollment. Yeah. So your assignment was to pick an area of your life that's important to you where you don't experience effectiveness or accomplishment or a sense of self-expression. And then you were to look to see which of the 4 pillars is weak. And it could be more than one. And whichever pillar was weak, you were to bring strength to it. So if, in other words, integrity is missing, you were to restore integrity. If the relationship wasn't working, you were to get complete with that person. If you didn't have an existence system, you were to create a way of keeping your possibilities in existence as a possibility. Or if you had stopped enrolling people in your commitments, you were to be on a rampage of enrollment. So the assignment was to come back at this session having created a breakthrough for yourself. So let me ask you, who'd like to come up and share? Who had a breakthrough with one of the pillars? Nobody? Anybody? Lauren had a breakthrough. So, what pillar, what area of life you're not being effective or accomplished? Not
It's not
experiencing?
quite like that.
Okay.
You can tell me not to share, but my sharing comes from our leadership call and then what happened on the team call after. And it was around integrity and around what would it look like if we were in integrity all the time. And so the conversation started with just the idea of if you're late or not and all what that means and if that's in or out of integrity. And we all kind of talked about that. And then something Fred said really stuck out for me, and I would call it a breakthrough. So Fred was like, well, what if your whole day, from the time you got up to the time you went to bed, everyone you interacted with was in complete integrity? They did what they said they were going to do, they followed the rules they were going to follow, and everything went that way. What would your day be like? And I was like, no one would cut me off in traffic, I would be happy all the time, everyone showed up to appointments, and like, if that were the world, I think that's what like Landmark is all about, trying to create that being the world. And so that gave me like a breakthrough and like, okay, this is why I need to be on time, this is why this is important, and this is why like trying to help other people do that would also be important.
So, okay, awesome. So you had a breakthrough then. So were you on time throughout the week, or how did integrity show up for you in areas of your life? From that call moving forward?
I've definitely been better at being on time.
Have you been on time?
Yeah. I'm trying to think what happened since Wednesday.
That's a big deal for some people.
Yeah. And I think like today, I finally did something that I've known I needed to do since last Wednesday, and I need to do it before this coming Wednesday. And so today I was like, today is the day, we're definitely doing it, and I like, it's literally like answer 5 questions out of a book. And so I like sat down and I did it in like 10 minutes. So I was like, why did you think about that for days? Like just know there's something you need to do and just do it. Kind of integrity. If I didn't do it, it would have been integrity killer.
Did you do it?
Yeah.
So you honored your word.
I did.
That's integrity.
I would like to honor my word faster next time.
There's plenty of time for that.
Yeah.
So you had, awesome, you did the homework.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you.
Beautiful. And that reminds me that, several of the group leaders came back, well, that's what it was. I shared something on the group leader call where I was out of integrity, which I should share right now. Yeah, 'cause I got a lot of texts after that. Their calls went pretty well. I don't remember what I said. Oh, yeah. Give me a second. Was it the, yeah, I'm not my coach. Oh, wait. So, oh, that's what it was, yeah. My coach and I have a call scheduled at 8:30 in the morning. Well, I don't know what days, last week. And I was running late, so I sent him a text and I said, can we talk at 8:45? I'm honoring the commitment still. And he goes, yeah, we can talk at 8:45. So I call him at 8:45 in the morning, and nobody picks up. And I don't leave a voicemail, because I'm kind of ticked off. I'm calling. I usually never miss a call. And so at 8:50, he calls me back. And I see the phone like this, and I'm like, and then I'm like, driving along, and then I see the phone ring at 9 o'clock. I'm like, I'm still not going to answer. He's trying to reach me twice. I was like, oh, my time isn't important? Screw you. And I got a text a few minutes after that, like 20 minutes, and he said something like, I don't know what happened here. And first of all, I had a reaction. I'm like, oh, how did you not know what happened? There was an agreement we had at 8:45, and it didn't happen. And so I said, well, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm out of integrity because I knew that you called twice and I didn't pick up the phone. And I didn't want to tell him that. I wanted him to sit and burn, I'm just being authentic with you guys. Yeah. So he sends me a text back and, what did he say? Yeah. Oh, he goes, yeah, I got that, why would you do that? And I'm like, well, we had an agreement, 8:45, you weren't there, da-da-da-da. And, this won't happen again, it's complete for me, thumbs up, that's it. So we move on. So then later in the day, we have another call scheduled. Can't remember why, but it was scheduled. And we get on the call and he says, well, do you know that you were making me wrong? I'm like, I wasn't making you wrong. And he goes, well, let's just say if you were making me wrong. I'm like, I'm not going down that rabbit hole. I'm not making you wrong. And I said, you lacked integrity. And he goes, and so did you. I said, yeah, I lacked integrity because you did. And so, I was really getting present to, like, if somebody makes me mad or somebody else is out of integrity, well, then forget it. I'm just going to go out of integrity. And you're going to have to deal with my lack of integrity, which is not responsible. But, so he started to say something like, you're making you wrong. You're not being sourceful to your coach. You're not sourcing your coach. You're not being great partnership. So I was like, what are you talking about? You haven't acknowledged. It took a while for me to say this because this is someone who's got more training than me. That's my mentor, which is a step for me to say. And I say, look, you haven't acknowledged that you were not on the call at 8:45. I've already said that I was out of integrity. It's out there. And he goes, oh, are you going to pull the integrity stick on me? I'm like, what are you talking about? We're both trained leaders. This is how we operate. And yeah, I was like, I'm not doing that. This is how we operate. If I were to call a forum leader, another seminar leader, the center manager, if I were to call a group leader participant, they'd be on time. Didn't like that. And so then he started to go ahead, just go and go create things, go lead, go do whatever you need to do. I go, I'm getting off. I'm not doing this with you. I'm not doing this with you. So I hung up on him, which, I did it. I sure did. And so, I get this call from him and says, well, we need to clean this up. We need to talk to what's called the designation team. This is like another team, Central Region. It's kind of like, if there's something that needs to be worked out, you're on the call with the designation team. And I'm like, oh God, I'm in trouble. I was trying to get things ready, I'm trying to look at, attendance, participants, my manual, like, what have I, And so what I got on the call is that again, I allow myself to go out of integrity when other people are. And I do it a lot. My boss, oh, the person in billing at my job, well, she's not ready for billing. Forget it. I'm not going to go over there. And I do that. It just goes out that fast. So I got on the call with Rocco, and Rocco's, now you know it's him. It's always him. But he's okay with me sharing this, because it's not against him, it's for you, it's for something, right, for the conversation. So he said, you know what, I acknowledge that I wasn't out, I really acknowledge this. It took 4 days, but I said that to him. I said, thank you so much for acknowledging that, and I know that you're making me wrong, and one thing I've been doing, since you're my mentor, I've been kind of tolerating your lack of integrity. So this morning we get on a call, so we got it worked out. Which I've been in integrity in all other areas. We had an 8:30 call scheduled this morning. I called the phone, called in at 8:30, and no answer. What are you gonna do? You know, you get so mad, you don't know what you're gonna do. She calls me back at 8:31, and I'm just like, didn't we just have this conversation? He goes, you know what? I really have to apologize. My phone was in my hand. I go, I got it. He goes, my phone is in my hand. I was making sure to call you at 8:30. It's, you know, I don't know what happened. I think my phone got, I don't know what it was. I said, fine. A couple minutes later, he's like, we're talking. And then he says, oh, can you hold on just a minute? I need to schedule a business appointment with someone. I'm like, what? We're in the middle of a coaching call. We never do. You never do that. This is like, it's not fulfilling the intention of the call. So I said, you know, I'm like, this really doesn't work for me. And like moving forward, I just set the tone. I'm like, this is not going to continue to happen anymore. And I made it very clear to the designation team and himself that if he's going to continue to coach me, then he has to really step up and honor his word. So you guys, you know what I've been dealing with all day? Him honoring my word. His word. He's been emails, texts, did you do this? I'm like, man, that's incredible. And you know, it's really to serve humanity, and that's been my breakthrough in the last week. So integrity's, you know, there's much more I can share over the past week. I have other things I'm going to share with you what we're going to do tonight. So what are some pillars that you took on? Relationships, enrollment. Nobody? Yes.
Can we talk about breakdown?
Yes.
I had a major breakdown. I'm in the current a major breakdown with still don't know nobody coaching. With both integrity and existence.
Integrity, okay.
And existence. And is it? You want to make sure? I didn't know if you just wanted us to like say the thing.
Well, can you do a 1-minute share? A laser share? It's a laser.
Yeah. So last week I made the commitment, I think I made your call, to be more in integrity with saving money and not spending. And I realized, I thought I had this like big breakthrough last week of, oh my God, I never actually committed to saving before. I thought I did,